We got the table here. See, we're getting a level. Hello, Ted.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, first of all, Mark, I want to welcome you to Central New York. Let's see, you getting a level? Yeah. We're getting a level. Okay. All right. Okay.
Get you in here too, buddy.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I want to welcome you to Central New York. And it's really great to have a rock and roll legend come here to Rome. And I'm very honored to be doing this interview.
All right, I appreciate it.
Okay, by the way, happy birthday, Mark.
Thank you.
Yes, Sunday is your birthday.
Yeah.
I want to ask you the first question, what were your musical influences early on in your career?
As far as guitar playing, Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as singing, Howard Tate was my main influence. And Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin.
Now, you're from Michigan.
Right.
Was there a lot of Motown influence?
Oh, yeah, man.
All kinds.
Even the ones that the rest of the country never heard, always got released in Michigan. And
okay, I want to ask you about when you first broke into almost like the national limelight, and that would be with Terry Knight and the Pack. Could you explain a little bit about Terry Knight and the Pack and what happened?
Well, when I first started playing with Terry Knight and the Pack, I was playing bass. I was a bass player then. And something happened, I forget what happened. I went with Dick Wagner, who was, you know who Dick Wagner is?
No, not
he
really.
played with Alice Cooper for a while. He wrote the current Air Supply single. He's a good writer, guitar player, singer. I went with his group, and I started playing rhythm guitar. And then I came back with Terry Knight and the Pack to play lead guitar because their guitar player had quit, and on the spur of the moment they called me up, and I was kaput with the other band, so I went back and I started playing lead guitar. So then Terry Knight left the Pack, and it was just Terry Knight on his own and the Pack on our own, and that's what happened with Terry Knight and the Pack.
No, with Terry Knight and the Pack, you had a very big regional hit, I Who Have Nothing.
Right.
I'm not sure how it did nationally. Is with Terry Knight and the Pack where you met Mel and Don Brewer, or were you?
I
friends?
knew Mel before. Mel and I went to school together. We went to the same high school.
Mel was a member of a band, Question Mark and the Mysterians, I think.
Right.
Before Terry Knight and the Pack, right?
Well, he never was in Terry Knight.
Oh, he was never in. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
He came along with Grand Funk.
Okay.
We heard him rehearsing, and we said, "Well, don't know who that is." We heard him through the wall, and said, "That's a good bass player. We ought to see if he wants to join our band," because we were looking for a bass player to make a three-piece group with, and we just happened to stumble onto him, and lo and behold, he came with us.
Well, here's the question in a lot of people's minds: 12 platinum albums, 15 gold records. Can you explain the Grand Funk phenomenon? And that's the literal word for it.
Well, I'll tell you what. First of all, it was an answer to my prayers. It was the timing. The country was right, and they wanted to hear what I was writing with Grand Funk. I was I was like 20 years old when we started Grand Funk. I'm now 37 tomorrow. And during those formative years in my music, I was just, everything that came to my attention got on record, and everything that I saw that was wrong to me, I let people know about. And there just happened to be a lot of people that agreed with the same way I felt about the way things were going and the way things are.
Okay, in the early days, first of all, you can't sneeze at 12 platinum albums and 15 gold records, but in the early days, the rock press was really getting down bad on the band.
Right.
What kind of effect did that have on the way you felt? Or
I felt that because I thought it was because of the fact that Terry Knight, our manager, was keeping us from the press, that it was repercussion on their part for not being able to talk to us personally and get our own views on things or whatever, that they just manufactured a lot of bad press on us, and in spite of all the bad press, we were selling out concerts, and you know, and we were
Millions
the
of records.
people's band, and hey, just it seemed like, you know, how could they? This is what I just thought, how could they write a bad review on a show that was sold out and people went nuts, and we, you know, we got encores and they still wanted more when we left, and you know, it was, to me, what you go to see a rock and roll show for, you know.
Now, getting on the subject of Terry Knight, now he was your producer and manager for the early part of Grand Funk's career,
Right.
And then, well, it was in the papers, and we all heard about it, about the fights between the band and Terry Knight, and eventually he was fired, and there was a lawsuit. Can you tell us a little bit about that situation?
Well, just the greed of man, you know. It has no season. It's a full-time thing, and when somebody's greedy and they see, you know, some people that are rather naive to what's happening business-wise, the money that we did see was more money than we'd ever made in our life. So we took his word for everything that he said. You know, he said, well, I'm just another member of the band. Just treat me as your brother. You know, he won our confidence, and with that, when somebody wins your confidence, you know, you'll just, you know, people want to trust each other. You know, we're looking for that all the time. Somebody we can actually really trust.
Right.
And we thought we had it. And lo and behold, we didn't have it. Another lesson learned.
So then he was fired, and of course the lawsuits and everything else were settled. Produced an album, the band did, on your own, Phoenix, which is, by the way, one of my personal favorites. There's one song on there that I have to ask you about, the song Flight of the Phoenix. What was the inspiration for that song?
It was
It's kind of like almost ahead of its time. It was like before Marshall Tucker, Charlie Daniels, right? I think it had like this country feel to it, but yet it was definite rock and roll.
Yeah. It was just the feeling, the overall feeling of the band, you know, in a total musical jam that felt and expressed our feelings of the Phoenix, you know, rising from the ashes of the prior escapades.
Now, you know, during the lawsuits and stuff like that, obviously records weren't being put out. Grand Funk records weren't being put out. But after the lawsuit was settled, Phoenix came out, of course, another million seller for the band. So the next album, you introduced Todd Rundgren as producer. Now, how did that come about? How did the meeting between yourself, the rest of the band, and Todd Rundgren come about?
Our manager, God rest his soul, he died here a couple of years ago, Andy Cavalieri. But at the time, he was our manager, and he introduced us to Todd, suggested that we get together with him because he thought it would be a good combination of talents, you know. Todd producing.
Now, when Todd, well, actually, after the era of Terry Knight, the reviews, the rock critics, were no longer hostile towards the band, but actually you were getting rave reviews. And, of course, another million-selling album, We're an American Band. Now, there is a rumor, and I got to clear this up, about one of the band's biggest hits, The Locomotion, that was a mistake. Now, the rumor has it, I just want to clear it up, is that during a recording session, you guys were just fooling around with the song The Locomotion, and Todd said, yeah, that sounds great, let's do it. And you put it on the album, and of course it became one of the band's biggest hits. Was that really the story, or was The Locomotion you were planning on putting that on the Shining On album?
We didn't plan on it at all. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing, and it was just one of the, you know, favorite songs or pet songs that the band would do on, you know, in the limo on the way to the gig or something. We'd just take off singing and getting our voices warmed up. And old Motown stuff, you know, because, hey, we're from that old Motown era. I mean, we were weaned on that stuff, you know. We grew up playing rock and roll, but we listened to all the Motown stuff, and that was like one of the things, you know, one of the...
So that story was pretty much basically true, that
pretty
The
much.
Locomotion was just kind of a whimsical thing that...
And it was, when we put it down, it was like very, you know, let's just go for it. If it sounds good, we'll take it. If not, why, it was a laugh, you know, it was a good, we had a party with it, you know, we had a real good time recording it.
Well, come to find out, it was a big party at that.
Yeah,
Very big.
I heard all of that.
I also wanted to ask you about the way that in the early 70s that radio stations, for the most part, refused to play Grand Funk records, but that did not stop Grand Funk Railroad. Can you explain that?
like I said, answer to prayers.
It's just
I did a lot of
heavy
praying.
touring and stuff like that. But see, of course, that changed because as the band went on, of course, you started scoring, one record after another into the top 40.
Yeah, well, that's, mainly we were getting played, what little play we were getting was, quote, back then, underground radio. FM was totally different than what it is today. It was not commercial. They'd go for like hours and not have any commercials, and everybody would get laid back and play real long cuts and just get into the album style music. And go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about the album "All the Girls in the World Beware" because there was a definite change of style and sound in the band. What brought on that change when that album came out? Once again, another highly successful album for the band.
I think it was due to jamming and getting accustomed to playing with keyboards and the keyboard influence. With Craig in there, writing with Don Brewer, it changed. It changed a lot.
Because I noticed there was like introduction of horns and other different type things.
Right.
Okay. One question that comes to mind too is the switch from the band after the Born to Die album from Capitol Records to MCA Records. Now, what was the situation there? Any particular reason because your contract was up and wanted to go with a different company? Or
contract was up. We felt that MCA was much more enthusiastic about our efforts than what Capitol was, because Capitol at the time had some new people on their roster and that they were going to put money into that we saw, and we felt that it was a right logical move for us at that time.
Okay, and I want to ask you the album on Capitol, Good Singing, Good Playing. Now Frank Zappa produced that.
Right.
Now how was Frank to work with?
Great.
That record sounded fun. I mean,
Yeah.
From the first groove to the last groove, it sounded fun. You had Big Buns on there, and I guess Frank played some guitar on a couple of the tracks there. How was it working with him?
It was great. It's like he is. It's a wonder he doesn't resemble a coffee bean, because the guy just drinks tons of coffee all day long. He's straight. He's to the point. He's a good musician. He's got good ideas, and we just had a real fun time. Working with it.
Moving on in your career, of course, after Good Singing, Good Playing, the band split up. What was the reason for the split up?
It was 7 years singing on the road tours, and when we weren't on the road, we were in the studio recording our next album. We didn't have any personal life, and I think it was getting to the band at the time, because we just, instead of getting together and jamming and coming up with these good feeling jams, we were just getting together and, here we go, got to get ready for the road again. It was becoming drudgery rather than something that we really look forward to. And rather than to see the thing end on a sour note, we said, hey, this is not worth it. What we're supposed to be doing is, spreading a good time out there and having fun, and spreading that along the nation or wherever we're at in the world. And we decided to just hang it up for a while. We said when it feels good, we'll come back at it and do it some more.
Okay, well, shortly after the split up, though, you would come out with your first solo album, very fine album, by the way, on Atlantic Records.
Thank you.
Where did you get the ideas for some of the songs on there? Like take, for example, Dear Miss Lucy. Was that really about a groupie that followed the band? Or was that, kind of explain where you got the idea for, say, that song?
It was about a bunch of groupies that followed the band. I mean, it was like, that was the feeling.
Was Lucy an individual, or she was just a name that you tagged to somebody? Or to that general, the groupies?
I tagged it to the groupies, but there was a Lucy.
There was?
Yeah, but there was a whole bunch of Lucys.
The song, another question what my favorite song, personal favorite song on your first solo album was Easy Breezes. I thought that was a wonderful song. If the record company had released that as a single, I thought you would have had another top 10 record. That's just my political way of saying that. I don't like the method that some record companies do in choosing singles, because we're a CHR station, a top 40 station, and we have to play the singles that they give us.
Yeah.
And it's, well, anyhow. Nonetheless, where did the idea for Easy Breezes come from? Is that your real Uncle Jack?
Uncle Jack, yeah. God bless him. He's since I was 8 years old. Well, every summer I'd go out there and work on a dairy farm with him, and I just spent a lot of good years out there, breathing a lot of good old fertilized air, and you know, I spent a lot of time squishing mud up between my toes.
Well, the next move in your career was the regrouping of Grand Funk again. Only this time the bass player on your 2 solo albums, Dennis Bellinger, joined as bassist, and of course Don Brewer came back on the drums, and of course you on the guitar. What was the reasoning for the regrouping? Why just?
It just felt right that the music industry was coming back around to playing some rock and roll rather than what took over in like 76, 77 was the disco era.
Right.
Which we could not conform to, no way, shape, or form anyways. You know, I could never get into this meaningless, you know, throbbing, you know, I like the beat of stuff, but I like to have a melody and some, you know, some vocals, some singing,
and
some
to say
backgrounds.
Something.
Yeah, to say something, man. It should not be wasted, you know.
All right, so nonetheless, the band got back together, put 2 albums out, 2 very fine albums, critically raved. One song in particular I wanted to ask you about, which is one of my all-time favorite pieces of music that you have written, is the song Borderline. And where did the idea to that song come?
Love affair of mine. And I'm sure that because it was more than one love affair that I had that ended up that way, but I'm sure that when I was writing it that I was feeling, and I was gathering from around the world the feelings of a lot of different people.
Now, every time you have, in my experience in the radio career, I deal with the record companies all the time. Does it sometimes get on your nerves the way that the record company brand, I'll tell you why I'm saying this in a minute, the record company brands you as, you know, that heavy metal, that hard rock, this and that. When come to find out, in my opinion, and I am a big fan of your songwriting style, some of your best stuff throughout the years from 1970 right to this day has been ballads, but yet the record company really doesn't key on your ballads.
No, and they're right. See, they're hung up on this heavy metal trip, and what heavy metal was in Grand Funk's era is totally different than what heavy metal is now. You know, the phrase, the expression heavy metal today, just, man, it applies to some people that I wouldn't, you know, associate musically with, no way, shape, or form. I cannot even get next to some of the stuff that's coming out that's heavy metal. The stuff that I wrote, heavy metal, that from Grand Funk era, you know, said something and went someplace, and it was positive. A lot of this stuff most of it is negative. This heavy metal of today.
Do you wish that, you know, hopefully, you know, when your next album comes out, that maybe the record company would take a serious look at a very good, serious musician and maybe release a ballad? Because we had a lot of success in this area with the song Borderline, which when people think of Grand Funk, because of the way the record companies have that name marketed, immediately you think, oh, it's going to be something loud, or it's going to be, you know, some real good rock and roll.
Yeah.
But yet Borderline, you know, went over well as a ballad because it's a well-written song.
Thank you.
I personal favorites all throughout your career have been ballads, like or some songs that weren't really, you know, they weren't paranoid, they weren't inside looking out. They were stuff like I Can Feel 'Em in the Morning and Freedom Is for Children, and just, you know, on and on. Memories is another beautiful song that I'm really surprised was not the follow-up single to Bad Time, by the way. But I understand, read somewhere that you have a ranch and you raise horses.
I did have a ranch.
You did?
I did raise horses.
Yes.
Yeah, but I was on the road a lot, and my wife, who, when I got rid of my horses, she was pregnant at the time. The water froze up between the house and the barn, which is like 300 yards away, and she was carrying 2 buckets of water at a time, watering 12 horses and 15 goats a day. You know, carrying these buckets of water out, big old fat belly sticking out in front of her. I mean, you know, I felt sorry for her, so I got rid of all the animals. You know, got rid of that responsibility, and I had 1,600 acres up in Michigan, and sold off 1,560 acres and kept the 40 and built a log cabin. I bought a sawmill, and sawed up a whole bunch of logs that I cut off the farm before I sold it, and we built us a log cabin.
And that's where
that's where I'm residing now. I still got my chickens and my fresh eggs.
Yeah, but you still can't get away from that. The outdoors, the country, that type of life.
Oh no, man, that's my alternative to being on the road. If I didn't have that direct opposite in lifestyles, I couldn't come back out here and just keep maintaining a good atmosphere and a good life, a good attitude.
A big issue out right now. Dee Snider of Twisted Sister going down to Washington, Frank Zappa getting involved in that, and this is putting labels on records, warning labels, mind you.
Yeah.
What's your opinion of that? I mean, how far is this going to go? I mean, sure, if Prince slips a swear word in there, big deal, this and that. But what I'm afraid of, and I want you to comment on this, is you've always had an opinion in your music. Mm-hmm. You say, hey, I'm Mark Farner, I'm writing this song, I feel this way about this, here it is.
Yeah.
Are you afraid that someday one of your records is going to be out on the shelf, and because you feel a certain way politically that you're going to find a label on your record saying don't buy it?
I don't feel that the labeling will go into effect. My personal opinion is that they will all come to the conclusion that putting the words between the album and the shrink wrap so that mothers can buy or read before they buy for their small children who don't have the money to buy that album on their own, but they want it. Uh-huh. And that is the main concern, that these mothers and parents have a little, they can screen, they have a little input on the music that their young kids are listening to. The ones that have already got their bread or out there earning it, they're going to buy anyways. Mm-hmm. They're not really the ones that the parents are concerned about, because they're kind of up there in the adolescent and they're, they can kind of discern between good and bad. But the parents, as I saw it, and I was watching this congressional committee when Zappa was on there, and the way I got it was that they're just concerned about the youngsters, listening to this and having this put into their mind at such a young age. And rightfully so, because a lot of these lyrics, man, I didn't really realize it until this guy read them off, but that cat was like, he was real bold at saying that in front of this Congress and all these Congress people and over national television. He was real bold to say some of the four-letter words that he did, and the suicide thing, the message is put on there. I think it's sick, It really is.
You would never do that on any of your records.
Oh no, I've always been responsible. I've always, said, since I knew what the Beatles did to the population of the United States with their long hair and with their music, and what a tremendous influence the Beatles were on teenagers and youngsters of the record buying age when I was young, that I would always be responsible enough to keep my lyrics and my songs on the positive side of life and not get into this negative crap.
Well, look at the absolute massive influence you did have on an era of people, and your career is still going. I want to mention that we want to talk about the new band that you have together. I was earlier upstairs listening, to your sound check, and they sound hot. Can you tell us who they are and where they're from and a little bit about them?
Okay. These guys are, I've been switching musicians since last September 29th. I don't have the band that I would like to have together at this time, but it's this, this is put together. It's a good representation of what the Grand Funk stuff was. It's not exact because it's not Brewer playing and it's not Mel playing. But the guy that's playing drums is Johnny B, who played with Mitch Ryder and Detroit Wheels and also the Rockets. And the bass player I'm using right now is Marc Gouchon, who plays with Mitch Ryder now, and he's a French-Canadian musician. The other bass player that I use off and on is Dave Caswini, who played with Ted Nugent and Pat Travis.
Do you still get together with Dennis Bellinger at all? Or?
No, Dennis is in the National Guard. He's a weekend warrior. Oh. And every third week he has to go.
Is that why on the cover of What's Funk, or I'm sorry, on Lives,
yeah.
Funk Lives, he's wearing
all his National Guard
his
stuff.
National Guard. Okay, I see, that's something I didn't know.
Uh-huh.
This current tour, where's it going to take you?
Well,
I hear, by the way, you had a little run-in with Gloria.
Yeah. The eye to eye even. And we just lucked out on that. Just a little power outage, little trees flying here and there, but no big wave. They hit. We were in Long Island and in Bayshore, and Gloria came ashore there at low tide. Had it been high tide, they say that it could have been really disastrous. But thank God it was low tide and just broke a few trees off at the roots and a few power lines down. Nothing big.
So where's the tour lead from after Central New York?
We're going to out to Texas, where we started this thing back in September last year, and going back out west. Gonna hit. We haven't been out to the West Coast yet. We're gonna do the West Coast. It's been a long, drawn-out affair.
Are you doing up new material in hopes of getting a new record out soon?
Yeah, I just finished a 24-track recording studio up there. It's the one that Grand Funk used to record in. We added 700 square foot on, put a new live-in, dead-end control room, and a lot of equipment. And we got all the bugs worked out of it, and just getting to the point where I can get in there and use it myself. My partner had put all the stuff together, and I just, I had the building and the 80 acres that the studio sits on down in Fenton, Michigan. It's called the Alliance Recording Studio. And we just it's an alliance of his machinery and my facility, and going in there and getting the album together. It's the nice thing about it is you don't have to use the front money the record company gives you to go to New York or LA and spend $125,000, $150,000, $200,000. You can put that into tour promotion.
Right.
Put it in better places than somebody else's pocket.
Right. Well, good luck on the tour, and we're looking forward to hearing the records.
All right, lovely.